I use the same strategy on a day-to-day basis that makes me well over 6 figures every single month. And this is the exact trade that I took on EURUSD that made me well over 145K. So let's get into it and explain exactly what I did and how you can start to learn this too. So every single morning, I'm looking at my data and I'm using my data that I've built over my 6-7 years of trading to identify exactly when I'm going to be entering a position and how to execute my trade ideas that I've been building up, right? So essentially, the first things first, every single morning, I want to identify flows. Flows are very, very important when and using my strategy as we want to go in the direction of where price is heading to. So if we look at EURUSD here, right, we can clearly see that price has been very bullish for the past few days. If we jump to the daily time frame, we can see that if we look at it, we can see that price has extended itself upwards as well as the DXY dropping lower, right? So I like to use the DXY as a confluence in my trading ideas, and essentially this is what I'm looking for. So we use a site called Edgefield. Edgefield is a data statistical platform that I use to identify what type of stats do I have for the day. So for example, here on EURUSD, it says an Asian range breakout. If it breaks above first, we have an 84% green candle day, meaning the day would be bullish. Then we have on the other side, when Asian range breakout below, we'll have a 73% red candle day. These are pretty good stats in terms of whether it be breaking above or below. And it just gives me confidence in my idea. It's not a signal, but it's just giving me some reported data, right? So when I'm looking for a position, ideally the first things first is I want to see how market structure is playing out. Now, if we see how price is running over here, we can see that the Asian range has been extended. Now 10 to 1, I am not entering a position straight off the bat. I like my break and retest strategies as it's proven to work over my years of experience so I look at the supply and demand area. So we had some supply going over here, the last bullish candle before the bearish wick with overnight low being cracked. So that means we have a 73% chance of the candle closing red, right? Also following the EMA retracement. It's about 10 o'clock. We're waiting for a pullback within this area. And essentially, I want to see how price is still reacting. We had a nice engulfing off the daily previous low, as we can see that, but it's not exactly where we want. We believe that price can run a bit further. Ideally, we are wanting to follow flows, but because EURUSD has been so extended, we needed to see a bit of a correction on the higher time frames. So essentially, I love to use the Fib tool as it's one of my main tools I use on a day-to-day basis. And essentially, what I like to do is I mark out the swing high to the swing low on the 30 minutes, and we can see that it's a clear indication of the 61.71 Fib level area, right? Let's see how price continues to play out. We can see we get a beautiful reaction off that 61 level over there, right? Now, what's very important, if I just run a little bit back here, right, is I want to see how price is going to react off my supply area as well as my overnight low and EMA. So we're going to be trading off the 15 here because that looks the best. As we can see, it's tapping our 15-minute EMA, 61 level, which is a key golden area on the Fib tool, as well as our supply area. We can see you get a beautiful reaction. Now, we have 3 different entry models that we're using on a day-to-day basis, V1, V2, and V3. V1 is an aggressive entry model, V2 is medium aggressive, and V3 is our patient and waiting for confirmation entry model idea. So essentially what I'm looking for is to see how price is reacting. We can clearly see we're getting some beautiful rejection within this area, right about here. We're getting a few candle taps, but almost creating that scoop momentum, right? Now we drop down to the 5. Essentially, I want to see a break of structure to the low. And what I'm looking for is simply this 5-minute low crack down here at the point, right? The next thing I'm going to look for is that's essentially when I'm going to be entering my position, right? Why? Because with such an aggressive pullback and we had a bit of a 5-minute break of structure over here, running back to the highs on the lower time frame, I want to see how prices can react to the downside once again after tapping previous day low. So I'm waiting for confirmation. So essentially we would be looking to enter our position right about here after the crack, putting our stop loss above the high, right? And then running for at least a 2R to a 3R position, right? If we can see, this is when we're about to get positioned, right? We see our price is still stalling out within that low. We get a beautiful crack, not only below that 5-minute level, but also the 5-minute EMA, which is vitally important for managing this trade position. So essentially, when you take in a position, you don't only have to wait for the profits, but manage your loss as best as possible, or mitigate your loss as best as possible. So all I'm doing is I'm simply minimizing my risk by bringing my stop loss just above those highs. Now, what was once a 1 to 3 at the negative 61 mark, it is now a 1 to 4.6, which is absolutely beautiful, right? So if price does have to rotate back to the top side, we will get tagged out less more than 1% that we're currently risking. So as price starts to continue to drop lower, we get a nice little extension, slightly pulling back, but then we have a nice little extension back to the downside. Again, when managing our position, we want to start taking some signs off once we've hit our first and second TP. Again, 2R is essentially where I've seen my most profitable trade. So I've cut at least 50% of my position at this level here at the 27 mark, right? Then leaving runnings to extend back down to the 61% mark. And let's see how price continues to rotate lower. We get a beautiful engulfing to the downside, and then that continuous extension back to that 61% mark. This trade, as you can see, made me about 145K, and here is the proof of withdrawal right next to me. I'm doing this every single day with my traders live, explaining my thought process, as it's important, yes, to get as much education as possible by watching videos, but trading is a very practical game. And essentially, the market does not look the same on a day-to-day basis. So when you are starting out to learn how to trade, or maybe in the phase of break even or not even in a profitable phase, it's important to understand exactly how to apply a strategy on a day-to-day basis, because every day the markets do not look the same. So practical examples is something that we teach our guys with live trading sessions from Monday to Thursday, every single day, explaining this idea. And the proof is in the pudding. We had the data on Edgeville, we had the data on Euro USD, and we had the data within our strategy. On this idea, we call this an A+ idea. Essentially, we are grading ideas depending on what it looks like, what the market is presenting, and how much risk we are initially going to be putting on the table. So this is something that definitely can help you if you're interested. I'm going to leave links in the below to book a call with me, as well as the broker I use for this trade. Hope you guys enjoyed. Till the next one, peace out.